Hey witchlings, welcome back to Hex and Chill, where we talk about nonsense that's cool, basically. Today we are going to go into maybe a controversial concept. We are going to talk about past lives because this is a more, how would you say,
Je ne sais quoi.
je ne sais quoi, crazy idea.
Well, it's not a normal thing that people talk about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is why we want to talk about it.
Like, I have a bunch of friends and I'm like, I did a past life reading. And they're like, okay, I'm going to step a little bit further away from you. You know, it's just one of those things. Like, you do feel judged for it, but I'm really excited to talk about this. I'm sorry, my cat just knocked over our Hex and Chill sign.
Okay, it's not your cat. It's your familiar.
Yeah, sorry in the past few episodes if you heard a little meow in the background. That's my cat, Cleo. She thinks she's part of the Coven because she is. And she must be in the room when we're recording, or she meows at the door. So right now she's all around.
Yeah, we are going to, as always, start with our circle. We have already cast it, so we invite you to cast your own circle if you want. And don't forget to envision that ring of light around you. Thank the elements and everything. And we're going to get started. So past lives it's kind of a weird, especially being Christian and growing up in that, when you hear past lives, you're like, oh, that's like reincarnation, which is other religions, and that's bad because that's wrong.
Well, and also in Christianity, we believe that when we die, we go to heaven or we go to hell. That's it. One life, boom. So the idea of having several lives is almost like an unfair thing in Christianity. But no, past lives for me is this concept that we have a soul and its name's not Kay. This is just one of the forms that I've chosen to live. And I have chosen to live many, many lives. We don't always remember those lives, but I believe that there are essential parts of us that are from past lives, or memories that we randomly have, or feelings, or deja vu, or like a great obsession with a culture or a time period. Like, these for me are signs that you have been there. Like, you've done that. You've seen this. And so I think we're actually going to talk about to each other kind of about what our past lives we've had we haven't really dived deep into much of this. And so I'm really excited to hear from the girls on past lives they feel like connected to or anything like that. And so I think we're just going to have a discussion today with each other for you guys about past lives. So I hope you enjoy.
I wanted to say one thing. I thought that if you've ever seen the movie Soul, I think Disney actually did a really good job of portraying like how our souls kind of all are, the spirit that is inside of us that sparks this creation of who we actually are and being a human. But like, the little soul is on this conveyor belt almost, and then when they're approved, they just go down and then they're a new human. This doesn't go as far as to kind of what I believe. I believe that in the next life I could get reincarnated or have another life as a cricket or maybe a cat. I would love to be someone's house cat. Listen. But I really love thinking about it like in this, like, okay, I'm in the conveyor belt of all of these different lives that I'm going to eventually become.
Yeah, I want to start off with that this concept is, for many, it can be a little bit jarring. I would say when I first found out, I was still very much in the church. And for some reason, when I was talking with this person about past lives that brought it into my life, I was like almost angry with the person because it was one of those moments where you're like, why does this make so much sense? It shouldn't make sense. I'm frustrated with this friction inside of me.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, and it took me a while to be like, why? Is because it felt so right, but I was not in the time period of my life where it should have felt right because it was sinful. It was wrong. That's not how it works.
Because we're told that you can't trust yourself. You have to trust in what others said.
Yeah, and so I like sat in that and I just slowly peeled back these layers that had been built on me, almost like cocooning me. And I remembered that I have always loved Egypt. I have so many books from my childhood that are all about Egypt. And I adore them and I love them. And I try to learn how to write hieroglyphics and anything that had to do with Egypt. I mean, like when I would go to museums, my mom would be like, there is a whole museum. And I'm like, I want to stay here in the Egyptian section. Like, this is where I feel safe and seen. I don't understand why, but I love it so much. And so I ended up, as an adult, about 2-3 years ago, doing a past life reading with a woman who does them. And she kind of asked me about my past lives, and I was like, I don't really know. I have a little bit of draw to Egypt, and that's about all I know. And she laid me down and she began to read me, and one of them was definitely Egypt. And she was like, no, man, you've lived a lot of time in Egypt. And that's another cool concept. It's like, if you're so drawn to something, it might be because you've lived several lives there. You know this culture and these people intimately, and it just makes sense. And so she did a few other ones that once that were read to me, I felt really called to. I really feel called to a woman who's been persecuted, maybe in witchcraft. And for me, it's just all these feelings. Like, I know that I've been there and finally come to grasp with it.
So I've known Kay we've known each other for over 10 years. And I can fully corroborate that she has been obsessed with Egypt for forever. We have Audible, and one of the books that she got was like a textbook on ancient Egypt that was like 30 hours. And I'm pretty sure she listened to the whole thing. So I love having these conversations with you, because when you say I've had many lives in Egypt, I'm like, yes, that makes sense. I see that in you, and I feel the rightness in that, and it just feels,
yeah, exactly.
it's just there, and it's the only thing that makes sense.
So don't be worried if you've never had any sort of experience that Kay just expressed. I would say not everybody feels a pull to past lives. For me, I don't know that I've ever felt called to a very specific thing that gives me clues about my past lives. However, the idea of reincarnation in Hinduism, like, that was a concept that always kind of made sense to me, even though like I was raised very Christian with these very specific outlooks on what the afterlife might look like. But as soon as I remember learning about Hinduism in college, and yes, it took until college to learn about other religions, unfortunately. But as soon as I heard that concept, I was like, that actually feels so somewhat real. Like, I don't necessarily believe that there's a caste system that you get punished for having a horrible life or being a horrible person in another life. But I do believe that, yeah, like, it makes sense that like maybe at one point I was a rat, or maybe at one point and maybe that's why I don't have any past lives, because I was a rodent all my other past lives.
Well, and I would like what you're speaking about that. I think sometimes it is said by certain people who do past life readings that if you don't have like many past lives, if it doesn't like click with you, like my husband doesn't really super click, like he's supportive, but he, like Shay, doesn't have any pull or examples he can pull from his brain. And that sometimes is like, you just haven't had many lives. You know, sometimes people can have like their soul is choosing this life to be their first. That's what many people believe. And so you can have a lot of lives and you can have only a few.
Which I think, like, this just popped into my brain. You know how we always say, like, oh, that person has an old soul? Or, you know, I was told that my entire life.
Yes.
The amount of times that I was told, oh, you're not the kind of girl that I want to date. You're the kind of girl I want to marry. You're so mature. You're an old soul, blah, 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 all of this. I wonder if it's because we are old souls. Like, this is one of many lives that we've had, whereas like other people, your husband or partner, and maybe they're newer and they don't have that. And that's just such a cool concept.
Yeah. And for me too, like in my past life reading, the lady actually said to me that, I don't know if she read my aura or like what something about me, but it was that if I wanted to, and I really wanted to learn and dive deep, that I could be a past life reader. And since that, I've realized that sometimes I can look at a person like my husband, and even though he doesn't know, I'm like, I know you lived in this time period. I can just read it off of you. And sometimes Shay, like I struggle with Shay. Like I can't be like, you know what? Shay has lived this life. But with Lou, I know one. And they're just like certain aspects of someone I'm like, glimpse them, like a snapshot, like you take a camera of them standing in this life. And I think allowing myself, because I sometimes think we're blind to these things. I think someone opens up a window sometimes and we crawl through and you're like, oh, I can't do this. Just because you didn't do it as a child or something like that, and someone had to like tell you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can do a miracle. You can move a mountain, and you're like, oh shit, I can move a mountain.
Yeah, well, okay,
right?
Yeah, and so this is so I'm reading a book, and I've been reading it for many moons. It's fine, but it's called Psychic Witch, and I highly recommend it. It's very popular in the witch community, but one of the concepts is we are all psychic, and we all have these psychic abilities and all of this stuff, and before we are born and put in our bodies or whatever, that we have all of these abilities, and when we're kids, we're closer to that time when we had all of those abilities. And also when we're kids, we were closer to when we were in that past life. How some kids will tell you, I was so-and-so or whatever, and parents are freaked out. They're like, oh, my kid is just having an imagination and making this stuff up. But what if they're remembering their past life because they were so close to it?
I totally agree. Like, kids can see crazy shit.
Yeah, and so I don't know, it's just so interesting to think that as we're growing as adults, we're getting farther and farther away from that past life and remembering that because they're so far away from us. And so we're growing up out of that. But I just think it's so cool when you open that window, or if you light a match in the dark cave and you can kind of get a glimpse and see around. You can't see fully, but it's going beyond that veil a little bit. And then you're opening yourself up so you can see it more.
I really love how you talked about how, like, as a child, you have that connection because you're still remembering. I just wanted to point out that I believe that UVA has a study that they did that actually helps support the idea of past lives. And I don't know.
And I think we're going to use this as a bouncing point because we also wanted to talk about the spirit world and ghost. Because I'm speaking for myself, but I'm pretty sure, because I know these girls, we are all big fans of the concept of ghost in the spirit world. I definitely think that something exists. I've loved ghost shows since I was very little. Like, I watched Ghost Hunters like every day.
Same.
Ghost Hunters.
Yes.
And then we went to Zach Bagans. And that was a choice. And now I watch Sam and Kobe in Project Fear, like, religiously. I love all those people.
Yes, she does. And I
drag Louisa in and sit her down.
Yes,
make her watch.
she drags me in, and because I was always very scared and very afraid of those things. And again, it's because growing up in the church, and I remember when I was at home, and I think this more had to do with my home life and everything, but I would be laying down in bed and it would be dark, and I was terrified of the dark.
Oh, me
my
too.
entire life.
Oh yeah.
And wait a minute. I did not. Yes. I had to have a nightlight.
Oh, yeah. Nightlight, stuffed animals covering me so no one could find me.
Yes. Because
underneath the covers the whole time.
Yes. You know why? Because we were burned. Put into the dark.
Oh my God. Okay.
Or in cells. Think about that. Left in a dark cell because you are convicted of something you didn't do.
Yes. So I remember laying in bed, closing my eyes and seeing and feeling creatures and like darkness scratching out my eyes.
Whoa.
It was horrifying, and I would like gasp and open my eyes, and I could not close my eyes, and it was horrifying.
Really?
And,
You've never told me this.
I know.
That means like you're like, for me, it's like your most recent life was like ended traumatically.
You were buried alive.
Probably. But yeah, those things, and it still happens to me sometimes if it's really dark and whatever. I will feel those. I don't know. So I would do that, and
it was a demon when you were little, right? Like,
yes. Okay, yes. Thank you. I love you too, and you helped me get my train of thought. So growing up, I always thought it was like demons and it was scary. And you think I have to have Jesus, and Jesus gives me power against these demons and all of this. And it's all based in fear. And now I love watching this stuff. And granted, there are still some very not great, I don't know, I don't want to say evil spirits because I just think it's more misunderstood, but it can still be scary, but I think it's not scary because it's evil trying to hurt us. It's scary because it's unknown. Yeah. And we don't know what's going to happen.
Okay. So listen, this is my interpretation of the ghost world. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
I was sitting with my husband in an Irish pub, and this concept hit me like a wall of bricks, and I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. So here you go. I believe that our past lives can be I'm living this life right now and my energy is leaving a mark in the world, almost like an echo. When I leave this world, an echo of me will be left. And I just think that the ghost world is that, like, it is moments of us. Because like if you believe in past lives, it's like, well, you go to live another world, why would you be another life? Like your soul's choosing another life to live. Why would you then stay here and haunt this place, right?
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
And so it's like the echo of that moment, it still lives there. Like it's still breathing. It is still that part of your soul that has been left to teach a lesson. So when you're talking about evil, and that's what made me think about this, there are bad people. Your soul can have a bad life. We live in this world, and you know that there are people that you feel are evil, or they just give you that gross feeling, and that's because that is just
I
that
think
story.
Yeah, and I think that's where they are in their journey. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. I have to have purpose and light, and I also believe the best about people, and I never want to think someone is past the point of no return. And that's why I really struggled with heaven and hell, and it's so permanent.
Yeah.
So I love that, yes, there are evil people in the world, and like we can still feel those echoes, but that's not the end of their cycle. And what you were saying about echoes, which I love that word for this concept, because we can go to the same place. The three of us can go to the same place, and Kay have an experience, and Shay and I don't feel anything. Why is that? Like, is it because Kay's making it up? No, it's because maybe it was a past life of yours, or I don't know. I thought that concept was cool, because people are like, well, I won't believe it unless I see it, but you're not going to see everything because it might not have anything to do with you.
Yeah, and I totally believe like some people see beyond that veil easier. Like they can see those moments physically with their eyes, or they can hear it. I believe all these people that have these experiences and these abilities, because it just makes sense for what we feel sometimes. I never want to knock that stuff. You know, like I watched an episode of Sam and Kobe where one of the guests saw the room fill up with black smoke, and she was freaking out. And they all believed her because she's seen something that we don't see, but it doesn't mean it's not true. And they were very accepting of that. And I love that, because it's like we all have different eyes. We're at different parts in our journey. We're at different soul levels. Like it all just makes sense. People just make sense.
Yeah, I definitely think that our energy lasts in places even while we're gone. Science literally tells us that you can't create something out of nothing. Like mass has to give way so that new mass can be formed. And so when I think about that concept, like 100%, there's definitely going to be energy that's still left, because once that energy moves on to something new, it can't, it's probably not all of it all at once. I think about like even just as you're forming in your mother's womb, you start very, very small, and then you grow and grow and grow. So I believe that energy has to move and displace at a similar rate.
Yeah, because I think definitely places feel like, I know there are places in the world that people investigate that have that very negative energy. And I think it's because and
when they leave the space, their energy stays behind in a way. Like you can still feel.
When I think like if someone that was just the worst lived in this place, and then we are constantly going into that place in fear to investigate it, we are leaving more and more fear there. Like I think haunted places that's the basic concept. We allow that fear to grow into something that is unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And we just give it that power. Because I mean, if
that's literally the definition of a poltergeist.
Yeah, like if I'm gonna be really scared here, then I'm gonna be really scared there. Like I am telling myself this is how it's gonna be. I mean, we're in Salem. We're literally staying at an inn that is believed to be haunted. And I'm already like, this is kind of scary.
Okay,
so
see, I'm the complete opposite. I'm so excited.
I love ghosts, but then when I come to like face to face with it, I'm like, oh shit. Like I'm so scared. That's how I am with haunted houses. Like I love Halloween. I love spooky. I love like scary movies. But you put me in front of a haunted house, I'm like, hell no, I will not go in there. They're gonna touch me. There's gonna be weird things on the walls. I like panic, paralyzed on the floor. I can't.
Which
you would never
funny.
guess.
That is actually really funny, because remember that one time we auditioned for that scary haunted house? You were supposed to be the one scaring people, and you were scared.
So scared. I was in a zombie room and I hated it with my whole soul.
Needless to say, we didn't get the job.
We did get the job, but we were like, no. I said no. My husband said no. And then you guys were like, yeah, this is dumb. It's not even that much money.
It was, well, first of all, it was, they paid dirt.
And someone got stabbed that year. Do you remember that?
Yes. And I'm so glad we didn't.
I have never heard this story.
Yeah. It was just a haunted, like, really famous haunted house. And it was not the right choice.
I love that.
The callback was a no. Yeah. So for me, I don't know. I feel really strongly about this. And this, like, also does not negate, like, if you feel like someone specifically talks to you, a grandparent or a loved one or someone you know is, like, speaking with you, I do believe that is that person's energy. It's not just some, like, random thing. I really believe that we do talk to our loved ones in times of need or different parts of our past life. Because I know people feel really strong to talking. And I believe that that energy is still there. And it is that person. You are talking to that person. Honestly, they've just also moved on to another life as well. Right?
Honestly, rationalizing what you're saying, like, actually makes so much sense in my head. Because, like, again, if we're leaving at least a little bit of energy behind, if we needed to send a message to somebody from the grave, I could totally see that energy that maybe we might have in our next life, maybe while we're dreaming. I even think that sometimes, like, dreams can be so life altering, because I really do think that you can check in with your past selves or your future selves. I think of if my grandma were to come back and appear to me, like, she's already living her next life. Hopefully it's great. But if she needed to give me a message, I do believe that we still have that connection.
Yeah. For both, I have two grandparents that passed away, and I felt both, like, when it was almost time, I kind of felt that shift. And I think that's all. And it was in my dreams. It was like I'd wake up and I'd, like, have that feeling after sleeping and being like, I think they communicated to me. I also, talking about that, I watched something today about how when our loved ones speak to us in our dreams and what it means. And a lot of people who have loved ones come back to them. In their dreams, it's almost like sometimes their perspective's off. So they're either, like, really big or, like, really small. People have experienced that. They've also experienced they're kind of, like, in a place that feels, like, really safe. So, like, you see your grandparent in an archway or in, like, their house, and that's where you see them. It was just, like, this really cool idea of how you could dream about a past loved one and it's actually them kind of communicating with you, which I thought was really cool.
That's so cool.
They were talking about this, and I was like, because I've definitely had that feeling of, like, when I'm sleeping and I feel like I'm really disproportionate. Like, have you ever felt that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, like, okay, so my stepdad passed away when I was in 5th grade, and I have had, like, a handful of dreams about him since that time. But the only thing I can remember is seeing him in the corner of my eye, out of the corner, like, in my peripheral, and being like, was that really him? And then having, like, trying to find him and searching him. So it's not like an actual dream about him.
Well, that's awesome.
But I don't know. It makes me, I don't know. I can never remember my dreams, and it's so hard.
And I think people are also more sensitive and less sensitive. And that doesn't mean more powerful or less powerful, or you're not. Yeah. We're all different. And, like, when I walk into a room, I can be like, I feel an energy in here. And I think some people have that ability, or you see someone and you're like I think all women actually have this ability. When you see someone and you're like, I know that energy is not okay. Yes. You know, that's how we do not, I think, built into us because of the world we live in. Yeah. But I think, speaking to our listeners, if you don't feel like you have a past life, if this doesn't make sense to you, or if ghosts, you don't really connect with the ghosts, like, that doesn't mean you aren't, like, woohoo like us. It just means that maybe you aren't in that part of your life, and it's totally
it just
okay.
Identify with you, and that's totally fine.
So, and if you're like, this makes so much sense, welcome to the room. You are safe. Tell me what you were in a past life, because I'd love to know.
Please comment and tell us. So tell us what your past. If this really identifies with you, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know what my past lives are. Tell us. We would love to hear. You can comment. You can also email us. And if you have any stories that you want to share, like any
ghost stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Any ghost stories, any
Yes.
deja vu things, anything like that, please.
Maybe dreams too.
Please
Yeah.
send it to us. We love that
Because
stuff.
the best part of that is when you comment and you see other people's comments, you feel seen. And that is an important thing. Like, please share your story. We want to know. We want to see you. We want others to see you. And I did that once. I found this guy and he walked me through figuring out a past life by kind of going down my body into my feet and feeling where I was in that past life. Totally worked for me. And I commented, and there were thousands and thousands of comments that
It's so
all
cool.
had different experiences. And
Yeah.
you're like, this is awesome.
We're gonna like repost your duet or something.
Yeah,
on
I need to-
that,
yeah.
that on our TikTok.
Yeah, that guy was
because-
awesome. I don't even remember what his name was, but we should totally
But we
repost.
yeah, we actually did this together as a coven, and it was a really cool experience.
It was
like
a very cool experience.
as someone who normally does not feel a connection to past lives, like I was actually able to envision myself in the body of a Native American man, and we were literally doing a ritual, something that we'd be doing right here. And I think honestly that's one of the reasons why I feel so called to witchcraft, because we're dealing with the elements, we're dealing with the earth. And I do actually have Native American ancestry, but I also believe that like I've done a version of this before. It was just a different way.
And sometimes to go on that, like, you feel a strong one, and sometimes it's just like this little niblet. You know, like one of mine is either Mayan or Incan. Like, I don't even know which one, but I know it's there, and I can see myself, but that's it. Like, it's like a blip in time, but it's something like that. It's like you just kind of, more you marinate it, you're like, kind of think I know this.
And I thought it was all kids, but obviously it's not. Like when I was a kid, I loved making potions and spells. Guys, I'm pretty sure my mom, I feel so bad for her. I would make potions and in like big pots in the kitchen. I'd throw eggs, milk, and a whole bag of flour.
She was
and
Matilda.
I was Matilda, and I loved it. I had so much fun. And then me and my cousin, we would play witches, and we would make potions with perfumes, and it was so bad.
I love hearing about this when you guys say these things. So I'm like, that makes so much sense. I
Right?
love that.
It's
definitely a witch in her past life.
Yeah,
Let me just
and-
put that out into the world.
Yes,
Yeah.
I absolutely was. And then when we are doing these spells together, it feels so right.
You were like, what is Celtic? No.
Oh, yeah. Druid. Mhm.
Yes, that or a Viking, like very strong, long hair.
It's fun, and I don't know, it's also fun because it's fun to experiment and see. Like Kara can be like, oh, I see this, and I can be like, I don't identify with that, or holy crap, yes, how have I never seen that before? And it's just really cool. And to sit here with everyone and be like sharing things that we did as kids or things, and we can just sit and be and acknowledge like, yes, I see that in you, and it makes so much sense. It just to be seen like that is the most empowering thing.
Like exactly what you said. Like I was like, everyone doesn't want to talk about Egypt with me. You guys don't want to talk about Khufu Khafre. I mean, like, what 6-year-old does that? Nobody. As well, that's not true. But me and the other ones that feel the same way.
Me and the four other people.
Yeah, we have the
Egyptian archaeologists.
Okay, well, also
we have a little text message group.
Kara also very much bonded over the Mummy movie because
my
it is so good. But also I have to have an Egyptian past life as well because I remember like acting out those scenes with, Nefertiti with the daggers in the Mummy or whatever. And I just remember trying to be her. I digress. Anyways, but it's just when you feel that connection to something.
I wasn't allowed to watch that movie. I literally sat outside my parents' TV room and listened to the whole thing because I couldn't watch it because I wasn't old enough. But I was so drawn to it. I sat outside. They didn't know I was there and listened to the whole freaking movie. And when he was like, my dad's going to kick your ass. It was the second one. It's the Mummy Returns. And I was like, this is the coolest movie in the entire world.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
There you go. But all right, well, that is our talk about past lives. And so we are going to do our tarot pool.
So we're going to shuffle our cards now.
All right, I'm pulling from the regular deck, and I've got the Fourth of Pentacles reversed, which is greediness, possessiveness, stinginess, overspending, and self-protection. Interesting.
And from our apothecary deck, we got St. John's wort, and the practical uses: it possesses antibacterial properties, fights inflammation, heals minor wounds and skin irritation. Magical uses: you can wear it to prevent colds and fevers. It protects against dark magic, and it's used for banishing, protecting, and blessing.
And from our mineralogy deck, pulled Black Tourmaline. Black Tourmaline rules your root chakra. It is in a cubic shape, so if you're not familiar with it, usually it's growing out of a mother stone. It can be black, it can also be pink, it can be green, and I believe some other colors as well, but for this one, Black Tourmaline. So its metaphysical uses are for weight loss, creativity, success, prosperity, attracting love, meditation, grounding, and understanding root of problems.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I want one of those in my life.
I got you, fam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that is it for this podcast. We're going to close the circle by thanking air, fire, water, and earth.
Then please like, comment, share, and email us if you want to. We love you guys, and we'll see you next week, witchlings.
The light in me sees the light in you. Bye, witchlings.
There's a candle in the window. What is that song? I'll be the candle in the lady. No.
Bye, bye, little Sebastian.
Absolutely not the same song. Oh, I'm gonna look it up and I'm gonna sing it to you guys tonight. That song.